right, everyone, welcome Tennessee Wildcast. Good to have you here again. Jason Harmon over here. Don King is behind us producing the show today. We always appreciate Don. Frank Fiss is our chief of fisheries. He's here today. We're going to get to Frank in a few minutes. We're going to talk fish, a little bit of turkey, but we're going to talk a whole lot of fish today, and we look forward to talking with you. I want to remind you to please tell your friends about this program. We're on every week. We're always there now. Got a fresh show every week, and then all our shows are archived. And Jason, this is, I don't know, show 5 or 6. We're getting a little bit more comfortable with this deal.
Yeah, we're rolling right along, Doug. This is going pretty good, I think.
Well, we want folks to know about it because it is your agency that we're talking about. This is the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency, and the folks we talk on this show, like Frank, they are the pros. They know what they're doing with the fish world and the wildlife world, and we're getting them on here to talk about what they do so that it will help you understand what's going on with the money you pay us when you buy your licenses. Anyway, welcome to the show. Before we get with Frank today, I want to talk to you a little bit about turkey season. It's just started.
Yeah, last weekend was opening day, and I think they had a good day.
Well,
or a good weekend.
Well, I hope so. And we got a long way to go, Jason. We always need to go on and reiterate what's going on with the season in case there are people coming to Tennessee that's never been here before. Maybe they've never gone turkey hunting before, and they're not sure what they can do here. So give them an idea of what's going on.
Yeah, well, it goes through May 15th. 1 bird per day, 4 per season. Number 4 shot or smaller. You can use shotgun or archery, and no baiting. Don't be baiting those turkeys.
No baiting.
Check the hunting guide or go online to make sure you have the proper licenses and permits.
Yeah, and a beautiful photograph that we're showing now that was taken by Rusty Thompson. Rusty is an officer for the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency. He's over in the Murray County area, and he got this neat shot that reminiscent of the days that the agency did all this turkey restoration. And not going on, restoration's not happening anymore in the state, but we do occasionally have problems with what some folks call a nuisance population. I don't particularly like that word because that seems like a good problem to me. But sometimes landowners want to move for different reasons. So they'll go catch a few birds and move them somewhere else to somebody else's benefit, I think. But I really love this shot. But you see the shots before this one where they sometimes get into neighborhoods and into yards, and to me, that's just a sign that we got a good population of birds. But I really like the shot that Rusty took. Remember, it's bearded birds. If you haven't hunted turkeys in the springtime, you got to have that thing sticking out of the chest there, and you want to see that. That's their beard, and you can, what'd you say, 4 statewide?
Yeah, 4 statewide, and you never know, there might be a hen with a beard. So
it does happen. That's why they call it bearded instead of male birds. You got to make sure you look for that. Another thing that's going on this time of year. One of my favorite things to do a long time ago, I know Frank has done it. I've been fishing with Frank in a beautiful stream or two, but this is rock bass time of year. I like to call them creek crappie because they bite about the same time as the crappie on our lakes, but they are really, they're fun to chase.
Oh yeah.
And Jason, what do you, when you fish in the creeks, I want to get a tip or two from you. What do you use?
I like to use flukes or small jerk baits or something that resembles a shad, weightless a lot of times, or that float, and you can just work that bait and mimic that shad or that minnow, and just about anything will hit it.
You never know. You got smallmouth are in these creeks, and you got largemouth and spotted bass in them. But these rock bass, or some people call them black perch or red eye. Mm-hmm. This time of year, you can almost stand on top of them. They're so aggressive during their spawning period of time. And I like to throw things like a Charlie Brewer slider worm. 4-inch worm is what that is. Right. Or you can throw just little twister tail kind of baits for them.
Well, you know, the rooster tail, anything hits a rooster tail pretty much.
Rooster tail is a great bait. It is a white rooster tail is, if I could only have 5 baits, it would be in my top 5 of what I'd live on. And we're going to talk to Frank in a little while about his fishing style. Frank is quite the fisherman with a real light line, and we're going to get there, Frank, and talk about that. And also up here, you see up here, I want to remind everyone that the agency has a number of state lakes across the state, mostly in Middle Tennessee and over in the western part of the state, but they are fishing only, and a lot of them have piers like the one you see the man fishing here. That man is actually Vernon Summerlin, a friend of mine, and that's Bedford Lake in Middle Tennessee. Great place to take your family. In fact, we call them family fishing lakes. You can learn more about them by going in our fishing guide. There is a permit to fish a lot of them. If you're 65 and you have that senior citizen's license, that's all you need anymore. So a lot of folks that are retired like to go to these lakes, but take them out there. And a lot of them are also highlighted during the free fishing day. But just if you want to go somewhere where you just know folks are going to fish, they're not going to be skiing, are out there on the personal watercraft, this is your place to go. Just these state lakes across there. And that's Bedford Lake. All right. Frank Fiss is our guest. Frank is the chief of the Fisheries Division, Frank. And before that, you were the assistant chief of Fisheries.
That's right.
And before that, I don't even remember now. What were you before that?
I spent a few years doing a watershed coordinating position. And then before that, I was the trout and stream coordinator for 15 years or so.
Okay. All right. And
that was by far my favorite job.
I was going to say, that's where I was going with that. That's before all this pressure started as chief of Fisheries, right?
Yeah. Those were the good old days.
The good old days. You don't know until they're getting in the rearview mirror sometimes, Frank. Well, you just mentioned trout. I want to talk about trout today. And, of course, this show is statewide. We want to talk about, we're doing it right here. We're producing it here in Nashville. But we always want to talk about what's happening statewide. And we have some great tailwaters across the state that are cold water tailwaters. What does that mean? And how good is this state for fishing?
Yeah, we've got a lot of opportunity on tailwaters across the state, starting in Elk River, which is our most western one below Timms Ford Dam, all the way up to Bristol, where South Fork of Holston River is. And what this is these are cold water discharge coming out of these deep reservoirs that supports trout year-round. And they're all stocked fisheries, but some of them are like anything else. Some of them fish better than others, and we've got some fantastic ones. They kind of cycle. Some have good periods and bad, but we're in a really good period now in the East Tennessee systems. Things get real quiet around the tailwater and that's how I know things are good.
You don't hear anything.
You don't hear
right?
anything. Everyone's out fishing, having a good time, and that's what's going on. The Clinch River is fishing very well. We're seeing lots of fish in the slot limit. We got the South Holston River.
When you say slot limit, what does that mean?
That we have a protected slot limit to require the release of fish that are between, say, 16 and 20 inches on that case, I believe. But it's to promote the release of these fish that do survive a couple of years in the river. They're much more valuable fish than the fish that just comes off the truck.
Right.
So if they make it that far, there's better odds that fish will stay around to be used again, catch and release. But the South Holston River has natural reproduction of brown trout. Back over to Middle Tennessee, I just saw some pictures just a couple days ago from the guys that got done shocking down there with 29-inch brown trout weighing 7 pounds.
Elk River, right. That was our buddy Bones Burns sent those photographs out. Incredible, and they're seeing those every year down there. The trout that I think about when I think of stocking fish are brown trout and rainbow trout. Is that right, Frank?
Most of the fish that are stocked are rainbow trout. We stock about 300,000-ish brown trout a year. They primarily go to the tailwaters. And we also will stock brook trout. We've got I forget how, maybe 100,000 of those that are coming out, maybe 150,000 a year to different places. And they're going primarily to tailwaters as well.
Okay. Yeah. All right, good deal.
And then lake trout to the reservoirs that get lake trout.
Okay, so we do still do some lake trout is that over in far east Tennessee?
That's going to be on Watauga, South Holston, and a little bit in Chilhowie.
Those are fun. Years ago, caught a couple. We went with a guy that caught a couple back in the days where they were in Del Holla. They're not in Del Holla anymore, correct?
That's correct. It doesn't have the water, the temperature and oxygen profile there is not, just won't let them be there.
These waters that we fish, these tailwaters, are they, because the dams changed the way that, I guess just the temperature of those waters, this is why this was all created, right? This became better for trout.
Yeah, and at a loss of warm water species too. Right. When those dams came in, the natural fauna were eradicated essentially. So, there was a need to mitigate that loss, and that's how the federal hatchery system started in Tennessee. It was designed to produce fish to put into those tailwaters, and we still do that today. A few years ago we had some issues about who would pay for that in the future. Luckily, all that's been ironed out. So we're real optimistic about the future of stocking in tailwaters.
Good deal. That was a scare for a while. That's where money was.
It seemed like every 5 years we were either trying to defend Dale Hollow Hatcheries' existence, but in the last go around there was some budget cuts that really forced the Fish and Wildlife Service to make some priorities that we didn't agree with, and finally TVA came around as kind of the hero to be able to pay for the mitigation of those lost waters. So.
Okay, so trout fishermen can breathe easy.
Oh yeah, and I can breathe easy. It seemed like that was a recurring job in that program, and it's just nice to be able to close that box for a little while.
Okay, what about our hatcheries? How many hatcheries do we have that produce these fish that go all over the place? And is there a value? Do we know how much it costs to raise a trout in one of these hatcheries?
Yes, and it'll vary. Some of our hatcheries are very unique in that they're maybe not in the most ideal spot. Like I'm just thinking of Tellico hatchery. We need a hatchery on Tellico River to support that program, but it's not the most efficient place to raise fish because we're using surface water and different issues. But anyway, the value of the fish, it costs us about $4 a pound, maybe $5 a pound, and that could be $2.50 a fish for those 9-10 inch fish.
That's expensive.
That's
a lot of hard work. But you're raising them they're going from the egg to the stocking size. This size, right?
Yeah, the eggs a lot of them come FedEx essentially. We don't have brood fish on any of our hatcheries. We get the eggs from the Fish and Wildlife Service. We raise them and take them outside and get them bigger and bigger, and then they get stocked.
Okay, and how many hatcheries do we have that just produce cold water fish?
We got 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
And does that include the National Hatchery, Del Hollow National Hatchery?
And Del Hollow's, it's not our hatchery, but it produces over 50% of the fish that are delivered to the state every year. So they're a big part of our system. We really value that partnership.
And just briefly, I want to go back and talk about the East Tennessee tailwaters. I've fished the Caney Fork here in Middle Tennessee and the Elk River in Middle Tennessee, and then some of our smaller waters that we stock in the wintertime and part of the winter program. But what about those? Are those East Tennessee waters better? Or even the plateau, say the Hatchie River, not the Hatchie River, the Hiwassee River? Yeah, are they better?
No, they're all different. I mean, like the Hiwassee River, for example, gets pretty warm in the summer, and in the last 10 years, we've shifted from really a struggling year-round fishery to a really neat delayed harvest fishery down there. And on a Middle Tennessee stream that's just stocked in March, let's say, maybe March through May, our expectation for that fish is to survive to maybe end of May, June, and hope that people go out and enjoy it. If they want to catch and release, fine. But if they want to keep them, that's fine too, because they're not going to be there in July.
Okay. All right. So they're all different then.
Oh yeah. Even the tailwaters, they're vastly. And we stock the stocking rates vary tremendously because of that. The better water quality, often we can stock fewer fish.
All right. Yeah. Have you seen? Do you feel like there's?
And I'm sorry, I don't mean that there's poor water quality in our tailwaters, but as far as from a trout's point of view, just how well they survive.
Okay, yeah. All right. Has our trout fishing increased the number of, you think, fly fishermen, kayak fishermen? Who is using our waters these days?
Well, we're getting a lot of use on our tailwaters. We typically will see spin fishermen, fly fishermen, bait fishermen, bank fishermen, people in boats, people that want to run the river at generation, people that wouldn't do that. It's just everybody. And as you know, everybody is seeing more kayaks out there. The tailwaters are a good place to do that too. You can be a little more mobile and access maybe some holes that you couldn't get to otherwise.
All right, I want to remind everyone too, especially if you're new to Tennessee and to tailwaters, they generate a lot, can be very dangerous below a dam, so you need to make sure before you go, you know what the generation schedules are, and remember they're tentative, that they can turn that water on, and if that water starts rolling, get out ASAP then.
We get those calls, and I really take the time to explain that it's so important to know the schedule. Don't cross the river. Kind of be on your own side where you can get back to your vehicle and learn. You do need to learn some things when you start on a new tailwater.
You do, and it's good to go with somebody. And don't park your vehicle on a sandbar.
That's right.
Because that's bad news. That water really comes up and it can get you in trouble. And Frank, one other thing on trout before we move on, and I think you kind of mentioned it. We have native and non-native trout. What are the native and what are the non-native?
The only native trout we have are brook trout.
Okay.
And the brook trout that we stock out of in great numbers are actually they're actually not the true native. The true natives are the southern Appalachian brook trout, which are only found in the mountains of East Tennessee. And we've we're doing a lot of work with genetics to identify them down to the population and make sure we conserve that heritage.
Okay. All right. And trout have been stocked a long time. They're not native, but they seem like they are anymore. Rainbow and brown.
Yeah.
They just seem like they've been here in our lifetimes anyway, forever.
Yeah, they're part of Tennessee fishing for sure.
Okay. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit. Let's talk about the Asian carp for a second. We have Bobby Wilson.
They're not native.
They're not native. No, we don't want them here. Bobby Wilson was on a few weeks ago, who was in your position before he moved to a director's position, assistant, and now you've taken his spot. I don't know if that's the right way to say that. But anyway, you're the chief now. And Asian carp is one of those things you have to deal with on a daily basis. Tell us about Asian carp in your world.
In my world, we are easily having a meeting a week with people across the Ohio basin. You know, it's a national problem, essentially, not just a Tennessee problem. So we're looking to other people for advice and help and funding. We recently got a lot of funding to do some research on carp. So I never thought I'd be working on carp as a fisheries biologist.
But here you are.
If you told me that 20 years ago,
you never know. There's always, what's that next thing that's going to happen that scares us and our resource and our fish?
Yeah,
there's always something. There's not ever, it was zebra mussels, it's Asian carp. There's always something we're worried about.
And they're all still there too. It's just compiling.
Okay, so these Asian carp that we have in here, I know Bobby talked a little bit about you trying to create industries where we can get folks that might sell them for food somewhere. How's that going, and do you see that as working down the road?
That is probably one of the more immediate opportunities to eliminate numbers of carp in Tennessee. And there's other silver bolts being worked on in laboratories across the country, but right now that's the most tangible thing that we can see. And that it is the price per pound that people are willing to pay for, like the wholesale buyers to buy from fishermen, from commercial fishers, it has been going up. So at some point there's going to be enough value in those fish that people will fish for them more, and that will help.
Okay, and where are they? Where are they in our little bodies of water yet, or just in the big Tennessee and Cumberland rivers?
Yeah, primarily that you're going to find them in Kentucky Lake. You're going to see them in shallow areas, like side channel areas. You're going to see them immediately below the dams and the tailwater areas. But they're lake wide. They're probably more abundant in the lower lake, actually in the state of Kentucky right now, than they are in the main part of Tennessee and Kentucky Lake.
But we do have them in.
We have them in Barkley. We got them in Cheatham. Each as you go up each dam, there's just
a lot
Cumberland
fewer
River on the Cumberland River system, and in the Tennessee system, they're down to Wheeler. I believe that's 2 more dams up.
And then I was with you guys last year when you actually found them in the Duck River right here in Middle Tennessee and Columbia. Not in big numbers, but
there was a small group of carp that had run all the way up to Columbia. It's 132 river miles.
And of course we're showing these silver carp jumps. Silver carp are the jumpers. That's the one you hear about. That's you don't want that, but there's another one called big head, and they don't jump, right?
That's right.
All right. So, and we don't know how many of them are here.
Well, from some of the commercial landing data that we have, we're pretty sure there's a lot more silver carp out there than there are big head carp.
Okay. All right. Time will tell. More work, a lot more work to come. And on the scale, though, Frank, on that scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the most alarming, where do you put Asian carp as far as what they could do to our fisheries? Because they sift out all our plankton, the food chain, the plankton.
Well, we worry about it like it's a 10.
Yeah.
And if it turns out to be a 2, then that'll be great.
That's good.
We're worried about it as a 10 because we're experiencing the invasion at this point. Mm-hmm. We don't know what the end product is going to be when they're established, what that establishment will look like.
When the zebra mussel scare came along a few years ago, it seemed almost as alarming, and they're filterers too. They clear the water, and that's not good. But it seems to me the Asian carp is a little more scary than the zebra mussels. Are they or no?
They are to people because they see them.
Okay, but what about to the biologists? When you guys first heard about zebra mussels, were you just as alarmed as you are about? Were you?
Yeah, I was, and I think we're not done worrying about that either, because we're seeing them become more abundant on new waters, or where places where we've had zebra mussels for some time and knew of it. All of a sudden, we're seeing a lot more of them. Like Norris Lake is an example. We picked up a zebra mussel in one of our hatchery intakes. We've not had that scare before, but now that's something we need to manage around. So that hasn't gone away. We're just doing a little more worrying about it.
It reminds me of Men in Black. There's always somebody trying to destroy this miserable little planet or whatever.
Yeah.
There's always a scare out there.
Yeah.
I think y'all do a great job working with them. Let's talk about something happier. The largemouth bass program going on right now in Florida largemouth. I know that puts a lot of pressure on the chief of fisheries. What kind of pressure? Does it not?
It really doesn't. We got great people in this agency, as you know, that coordinate all that. We've got trades going on with states of Texas, Florida, and Louisiana, or not even trades in some cases. They're just offering us fish, and we rely on those states to give us the fingerlings, or the fry actually, and then when they come up, our hatchery managers take care of those fish, and they get them out. I mean, there's really not much for me to do, and if it comes down to me raising Florida bass, we're all in trouble.
Okay, and then we're showing a photo of a smallmouth, but how's our smallmouth fishing in Tennessee?
Oh, it's great.
All right.
So, I mean, there's always stream fishing is, that kind of goes up and down with how much rain we get from time to time. Reservoir fishing, yeah, we got people are still flocking to Dale Hollow to fish for smallmouth. I saw some really good pictures out of Priest this week from earlier than year, but I'll tell you, it's.
Okay, and then walleye, we've gone to that too, and that's something that, and I'm hitting them hard because I want to talk about fishing with you in just a minute, just fishing in general before we run out of time.
Fine.
But what about the walleye and the sauger program in Tennessee?
Yeah.
We've got anglers. We're showing photographs from Normandy of walleye over on that reservoir. What's going on across the state?
Well, walleye and sauger both are a little more challenging than, say, smallmouth bass, which we don't really have to stock, but we do have. Almost every one of our walleye populations relies on us stocking to keep them afloat, because we just don't see successful spawning of walleye in these systems anymore. And there's a couple of reasons that could be, and that's in that article that's coming out this month, I think. But that's in
Tennessee Wildlife Magazine.
Yeah.
You got an article in there. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
But so a lot of people don't know that all the walleye that are out there are primarily stocked by Tennessee. And sauger, we've tried to supplement those populations that are naturally occurring with stocking with really mixed success and challenge. It's been really challenging to get the sauger to put in. So a lot of the biologists are saying, well, we can graze walleye a lot easier in our hatcheries. Why not do more walleye? Who doesn't like walleye? If you
Everybody
like sauger,
likes walleye.
why wouldn't you like walleye? And we're still going to have the sauger out there doing whatever ecological function they're doing, but we don't need to necessarily be stocking over top of them with more sauger, but if we add walleye, we might add a little more something of substance to catch, and it's been people are catching those fish.
I am a walleye fan, and I am not catching the big ones yet, but we go to the Cumberland River a lot here in Middle Tennessee and surrounding lakes. Dale Hollow over on the plateau has got a good population of them, but these guys that are fishing all the time are catching 7, 8, 9 pound walleye, which is a big fish, and it seems like sometimes sauger get up to that size limit and they're gone, whereas walleye seem to surpass that. Am I wrong in that?
No, that's how they're just naturally built. They're not supposed to get sauger are not going to grow as big as a walleye are. They're different animals.
Okay, yeah. All right. Well, and then some of the footage we're showing, those who are watching it on TWA TV, that we're showing was where you guys collected broodfish, or where the streams crew, one of the hatchery crews, pardon me, went and collected broodfish from Rock Mount. What's it called?
It's Rock Island.
Rock Island. Yeah. Thank you. Headwaters of Center Hill.
Yeah.
So take these things into our hatcheries from these broodfish, and that's where it all begins.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Good footage there. That was shot by Barry Cross, I think, wasn't it? All right. Okay. Let's talk fishing for a minute. We can get you back on there and just talk specifically about fish all day, Frank. But you're a good fisherman, too. You're a light line, ultralight fisherman that likes to go out and challenge these fish, with 4-pound test? 2-pound test. That's crazy.
No, it's not.
Tell us why. Why do you do that?
Well, I was thinking about this morning. It's when I was doing my usual spring routine where I check the flows on all the rivers, lake elevations, and I want to know where's the best place to spend my time. But when I go there, I'm fishing light jigs, trout magnet gear usually.
Trout magnet's a cool bait. Look it up if you haven't seen it. They're cheap, and they don't just catch trout.
Oh, they catch everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, why do I do it? I mean, you just got to have light line to cast something. It's a small jig, so you got to have light line to be able to cast at any distance. Okay. And to me, and I still do a lot of fly fishing. It's not a real active thing. It's almost like drifting a nymph, and I'm just feeling for a slight bump, and that to me is always more fun.
That's a bug on the bottom, right? That's a future flyer or something.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that to me is more fun than cast and retrieve. I just want to fish that jig, and I've kind of migrated from the standard curl tail jigs just down to this small jig, and I just don't see a reason to go back up because I'm catch big fish, catch little fish.
Well, they do. I mean, you can catch big fish on these little bitty tiny trout magnets that I really like, and you can go match that trout. If you don't like trout magnets, there's other things.
Oh yeah, you can tie your own little jig like that. I mean, it's all it is.
All right, but 2 pound test. Don't you get your heart broken a lot in your string too?
You really don't.
No?
I use a light line, good reel. I use a fairly large reel, like a 2500 series Shimano. So a lot of people buy really light line and put on a really tiny little reel, and it's all tightly wound. But I'm using it. That's
a good tip.
Because
I think I'm the one who buys a little bitty.
Yeah, but you put it on that big spool, and you can cast it a lot further, and it seems like there's a little less wear and tear on it that way. Of course, you change your light. No,
drag. You set that drag pretty good.
Oh yeah, pretty light.
I have a friend that goes. He fishes that magnet and that 2 pound test in tailwaters a lot. He wears out big old crappie in tailwaters often along the walls where they come around on the other side. Lock walls and wears the fish out. And I've seen you catch fish in that area. And I fished with you and Mark Goodland out of a boat on Priest a few years ago and watched you use that and catch crappie and bass, I think, maybe a catfish or two.
Yeah, I mean, we were probably out in April, and you just can't go wrong in April with a trout magnet. Anything, or really, that's the time to be fishing.
Well, that's the time we're in right now, Frank. So you'd probably rather be out there right next to.
Can we on your tip? Yeah. The rod, is the rod a longer rod, or are you using a shorter rod with that reel?
Great question.
It's one that it's not a real short or not a really. I think it's 6.5 foot rod is all it is. I would describe it as a light, not ultra light, just light, and it's I don't know. And the real tip isn't mine. I was taught this by the masters of light line work, but everyone learns from somebody, and that's my.
Well, that's the way it is. And hopefully, some folks today learn out there. I'm going to go.
I was out on
my bigger reel.
Buy some new rods,
and I'm going to tell everybody I learned that. But I mean, that's just my tip. Go ahead.
I was out on Blow the Heart in Franklin, where we do the trout stock,
and that's Middle Tennessee.
And it worked really well. And there was a guy there not catching them. I said, "Here, you got to use these," and he used them, but. They're going to. A lot of times you'll give a guy the baits to try, but they're putting it on 8 pound test, and you don't get the action. You can't cast them as far, and they get frustrated and they lose confidence in it. But if you have the right, if you call it the system, if you got the system put together right, it's going to work.
All right, Frank, that's it works.
It's a lot like fly fishing. You got to have all your leaders and tippets right, and it matters.
But that's what you do now, 24. I mean, you do it year round now, except maybe when you go saltwater fishing. But you do that. You might do it on saltwater.
Well, I do. No, I do. I fly fish and I use the light gear,
okay.
but I'll also throw some heavier stuff for stream bass fishing when I go paddling and stuff like that. I put the trout magnet up around June-ish.
Okay, all right.
Unless I'm out just playing.
We're going to get you back here sometime, but I'd like to just get you on and let's talk creek fishing and kayaking and canoeing sometime because you like to do all that stuff. I grew up wading creeks. Jason likes to wade creeks a lot, and we'll do a whole show on just wading. But in a nutshell, Frank, Tennessee's creek fishing pretty good versus the states around us.
Yeah. When I moved here, I just couldn't get over all the water that you can get in and just have a great time.
Yeah, 19,000 miles or something like that. It's
fishable
crazy
stuff.
We have great stuff. Frank, you're always a great guest. We'll get you back on here, okay?
I look forward to it.
I'm glad you're the chief of fisheries. I know you're going to do a great job at it.
Thank you.
All right. Jason, tell them where all they can find us. Where can your friends find us?
Yeah, Doug. tnwildlife.org. Start there, scroll down, and click the link. It'll take you to our website. You can watch on TWRA TV, listen on iTunes, listen on SoundCloud, or listen right there on the website. Real easy.
All right, real easy. You're doing a great job with it. We want y'all to come in and enjoy us, and we'll give you a lot of information. At TN Wildlife is our Twitter account. At TWRA Director, if you want to see what Ed Carter has to say. but always tnwildlife.org. You find all of it out there. We've got 5 or 6 shows, more coming.
Yep.
And we'll have some great shows for you. We'll see you next week right here on Tennessee Wildcast. Tell your friends, everybody.